Yes, that's how you start a podcast.
I was
Right on
thinking
cue.
the
Welcome to Crypto Curious.
Hello, I'm Estefania, and this is JP Miller. Here we are today to talk to you about all things Web3 and a little bit about how we got started in the space. So, without further ado, JP, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm feeling excited today.
you are
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
What's keeping you excited?
I don't know. I just love life, love Reach. We're good.
Yeah, life's good,
Yeah,
right? Love
absolutely.
what you do. Every day is a great day.
Absolutely.
So,
Yes.
I'm curious to know you got started with blockchain or crypto. Was it something that you started as a speculator, sort of buying tokens and eventually wanted to get in as someone employed in the space, or what led you down this rabbit hole?
Yeah, the past starts to get a little fuzzy, but I remember hearing about it definitely around like 2011. Uh, was off making a new life for myself and exploring the world, looking at what things I could do, and heard about this Bitcoin thing. And someone that I respected said, "Oh, it's a Ponzi scheme. Don't get involved." And I didn't. I should not have listened to them. That's always the mistake. You gotta research things yourself, and don't take someone else's word. Figure it out yourself. And so I came back around like 2016. I was teaching for a program at Purdue College for a summer, and students were into blockchain and they were like looking at the markets all the time. I was like, oh yeah, I heard about this stuff. This is interesting. Started reading a bunch of Medium articles, started really getting into it, and then talked to the students that I was teaching about, like, yeah, well, tell me more about this and help me get started. And so I bought my first Bitcoin back then and just have been on that journey since. And like by 2018, I knew this is what I wanted to do and I wanted to get a job in that. But like being a small market, I knew a couple of people. I was part of a meetup group, but there was just no work, right? So I just kept improving my skills. And like silver lining of the pandemic is that everything has gone remote, right? And so you don't have to be on the coast or in a major city to get some of these really cool jobs that are on the verge of doing like neat and new things with technology.
Mhm.
And just having like a solid LinkedIn profile led me to Reach.
That's awesome. Were you
Yeah.
recruited by Reach?
Yes.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And now you're here at Reach leading a curriculum.
No, leading curriculum. Yeah, my life has kind of been like a big zigzag. I liken it to like one of those family circus comics where the kids are making zigzags across the whole comic screen. And sometimes it's like frustrating, at those points in the life, like, what am I doing? Where am I going to go? But like, as you keep pushing forward in the future and keep aiming towards like a goal, you begin to create these intersections, the possibilities for intersections. And this is the theme that I've found interesting is like take like two or three things that are seemingly unrelated to one another, and then how can you marry those things together and create something new?
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like that's kind of what led me to go down the rabbit hole of Web3 as well, is like that intersect between finance and art and the mesh of the two being NFTs. So I resonate with that a lot, um, which is quite interesting. I'm curious though, like you said, you were part of some meetups, some students were leading you down that path, and now here you are. But in between, by reading those Medium articles and asking questions, and also being so early, I mean, the media now really portrays Web3 as this thing to get into, hyping it by how people are accruing massive wealth through it and things of that sort, right?
Right.
What kind of media or sort of research were you doing? And was it pretty easy to find the information you needed as you were getting started?
Yeah, I was reading, Medium's very tech focused. So what I was consuming was a lot of tech oriented. Anything in the mainstream media was really like this is not something you should be part of, and like stay away from this until it hit 20K, right? BTC hit 20K, and then everyone's going bananas and they want to be part of this thing, and then immediately it's like almost turned around into crypto winter. So there's a roller coaster there. But yeah, I was like some of the resources I was getting was like Daniel Jeffries. I think he's an author and wrote a few books and was thinking in these areas and wanted to like create something, and had joined one of these like a Discord community, but is on a different platform. And then what? Oh, this is kind of sick, but like James L. Toucher was like everywhere and promoting all these things, and like that was I think one of the first scammy type of things. It felt like disingenuous, and maybe it's just like a money grab. And so you could see like these dynamics starting to play, like people realizing this is a way I could grift money. Maybe this is a way I could get rich quick. This is a technology that could really be used to change the way the world operates. And all these people were like converging in the sector and thinking of ways that they could achieve their goals, whatever those goals were.
And was this around like the ICO craze or
Yes. Yeah. So I
okay.
was in the middle of that. Me and my friends would be talking about like different ICOs to get in and get on that whitelist. I didn't take part too much in the ICOs, so lucky me.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were a few. Like I'd read the white papers and look, and so the ideas were interesting, and like reinventing the whole phone system in prisons, and recognizing the ways that families are exploited, just for like making telephone calls. It's ridiculous. Like families can accrue hundreds of dollars of bills every month just from talking to their loved ones. Um, so like ideas like that are interesting, and I think like there's a lot of areas that we identified through the ICO craze that need to be changed, but unfortunately, I don't think we didn't see a lot of change in that, and so I think a lot of the promises fell flat.
Interesting. Yeah. This is something to think about a lot. It's kind of unrelated, but I'm curious to hear your take on it as well. Is this whole idea of sort of bringing these mechanics to like humans, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like the way that we're thinking about even DAO structures or structures within these ecosystems is very like token focused, right? It's like,
Yeah.
we'll just add this token, and the way you interact with this token through these smart contracts, it will eventually lead to that big gain or that sort of next step for you to level up. But
Right.
it's really interesting because I would say, and I don't know the actual statistics, I would say 90% of people coming into the space or people who will eventually come into the space are not tech oriented. They're not thinking about life and processes through logic and through these sort of mechanics that almost take away the human aspect of interaction.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's interesting because it seems like it started to happen in 2018, 2019 with those
Right.
ICOs, and then um, we're trying to re-implement it again a new way by calling them NFTs, by calling DAO tokens, social tokens, and things of that sort. So I'm curious to see if you've seen like any real difference in terms of how they're being implemented and launched from the ICO stage,
Right.
and if like how you think about that sort of integration of bringing those mechanisms or gamifying the way we interact and how that's affecting the way people work together.
Yeah, the technology has advanced over these years. Builders have been building throughout these crypto winters, and so the technology is more advanced, and there are more developers, and there's still like honestly absolute numbers, a very small amount of developers in the space, but there are more than there was, and there are more tools to help those developers, and you have more resources like YouTube videos and guides and these types of things. So in that regard, we have seen growth.
Hmm.
Yeah, it is interesting to like correlate ICO craze to like the NFT craze. And is it essentially the same craze just in different clothes, right? I think there's a lot of community, right? And we're seeing that we're able to identify that more in NFTs. and with DAOs is that there's a strong desire for community. And I think it makes sense, especially coming out of the pandemic, that people have been isolated and they're looking for ways to interact with other people. And then also, like, at least locally in the United States, it feels like the fabric of our society is really tearing at the seams. And
Mm.
that can be very scary and create a lot of fear. And then we know that, politicians, maybe this is a different subject, but like politicians can use that fear, right? And so there's also desire to find like safe places and communities of people that they don't necessarily need to be like-minded, but we're into the same thing and we can have common ground. So maybe we don't see eye to eye on everything, but we both really like this idea of this NFT project, whatever it is, and that's a starting point. And so we can start there on this thing that we like, and then from there we can start to have a dialogue and understand one another, and then maybe start to sew this fabric back together.
Hmm. I really like that. And that kind of reminds me of something I've been hearing time and time again, and it's a sort of theory that I've had as well, is how it almost seems like blockchain has kind of like turned the light bulb on so many people and awaken them to be like, oh, I can have self sovereignty too.
Yeah.
I'm pissed off about what's happening in the world. So maybe there's an alternative way. Oh, there
Right.
is. It's called decentralization. It's
Right.
called being a true owner of what I own, my assets, my funds. I don't have to rely on a bank or be in fear of a bank possibly shutting down my account
Right.
because of the way I'm interacting or transacting. And um, another aspect of it is like almost the awakening of like the collective consciousness of everyone is like
Mm-hmm.
how we're interacting with each other, and in the way of like, okay, well, we could, like, we're so reliant on like the way that like we think and we speak to each other because it's a peer-to-peer network too. So
Right.
we're reliant on each other to work together. So there's consensus or not, and to be able to sort of like build on top of that.
Right.
So I love hearing you say that as well. But I love calling it collective consciousness,
I like it.
just because I truly think like that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, the idea of decentralization is fairly old. I mean, it's like around the 1800s, right? So the word centralization was first used just before the 1800s, and then the idea of decentralization came about very quickly after that, within like 20 years.
Hmm.
And so even like Tocqueville was writing about the French Revolution as a push towards decentralization. And so the idea of more autonomy and individual uh, acceptance or
Hmm.
yeah, autonomy, right, has been around for a long time. We're finally having the tools to be able to do that in meaningful ways. And now it's just awakening. I think I completely agree. Like, being in this space has made me realize that, money is just a story. I always knew that money was just a story, but it feels more real now that money is just a story. Like USD is just a story, and it's a story that's backed by the power and the strength of the military and the United States government, right? Which is significant, but at the same time, it's just a story. Now, it's a story that no one is giving away, right? But there are other stories that are existing at the same time now, and so there's other stories about wealth, and these other stories don't rely on a giant military for its strength. This is a collective consciousness, and
I
we're
wanted to
telling
share
this
this
story
real
to each
quick
other.
too. It's a story, and you can read about it in here
Yeah.
too. I find this book so fascinating because it's like I read it only a few years ago, and this
Uh-huh.
was like my awakening to
Yeah.
the way our society runs and functions, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is how the central bank was created. This
Yeah.
is crazy." We're literally just printing money out of thin air and
Yes.
calling it a banknote and assuming that there is a store of value behind it. And
Right.
we're being told this story as if it were real. And
Right.
now, as we've created this new system of like crypto, blockchain, tokens, DAOs, etc., everyone's telling us like this is made up, this is a Ponzi scheme, blah blah blah. And it's like yes, do your research. There are projects that surely are.
Right.
But then there's that other aspect of like, well, our government made it up. Why can't we make up a new world we wish to see?
Right. Right. Yeah, there was just a little old man behind the curtain in Oz, right? And I've looked behind the veil and I found nothing there. Wouldn't it be a crazy story if we looked behind Fort Knox and there was nothing there, right? And all the security was just there for a story. I don't know. That's just something that popped in my head. But that's the idea, right? That these are just stories, and maybe there's something there, and maybe there isn't. And we don't have to abide by someone else's story. We can make our own. But I would like to hear your journey, and like you describe it as an awakening. So like, tell me about that.
Yeah. So just like many others, I was dealing with well, okay, I'll rewind a little bit back. So I heard
Mhm.
about Bitcoin in high school. So I was still in high school in like 2008, 2009,
Oh, early.
2010 when
Yeah.
everything was happening.
Yeah.
And some of my friends by like senior year had started mining Bitcoin, and they were doing it out of their friend's garage or their parents' garage. And I at first I like rolled my eyes. I was like, this is silly. I don't see a use case for it. This is probably never gonna be worth anything, right? Because it was like not even like a penny. It was
Right.
like
You could
fraction.
just mine on a CPU at that point in time.
Yeah. So exactly. And that's why it was so easy for someone like a high school kid to do it.
Yep.
Um, then as time went on, didn't really think about it. College, didn't really care. Then I moved to New York in like 2012 and I started hearing about it again. There were events around crypto and I didn't understand. I asked some really intelligent people as well that I admired who had done really well for themselves,
Hmm.
and they were also sort of like, "Oh, don't worry about it. Like this is nonsense, right?" But
Yeah.
then a few months later, that same person started buying a ton of um, some mining rigs, right?
Yeah.
Because it turns out he had like a power plant in Texas that he was able to connect these computers to so that
Crazy.
he could start mining his own crypto. And I
Crazy.
was like, huh, interesting.
Yeah.
So you told me not to care, but you're doing something very profitable about this.
Right.
So I actually couldn't figure out how to do it on my own. I didn't really do all that much deep research at the beginning, but I stumbled upon a Bitcoin party one day. And I was like hanging out with these people, having a good time. And I was like, wow, this is kind of like the burner fam with like the finance bros meshing together and having
Right.
this awesome energy of like coming together and like introducing this new thing. So, yeah, I was interacting with a few people, asking a bunch of questions, and someone was like, here, download this wallet. And it was a bread wallet. I downloaded it and he sent me $5 in Bitcoin
Nice.
at the time. And this was like 2014. Then fast forward a few years, ignored it, forgot about it, didn't buy more, didn't take it out, whatever. Then one day, I think it was because like I was super broke and I was like, I need to figure out how I'm gonna eat today.
Right.
This like $5 had turned into like 120.
Nice.
Uh, and I was like, holy shit, this is so cool. Like, imagine if I had just bought a little bit more. What would this be worth today?
Right.
Right.
Give me a
Uh,
lot of bread.
yeah. So I was like in awe by this. I liquidated at the time and then I kind of again like stepped away from it. Then fast forward 2019, I moved
Mhm.
from New York to Los Angeles, started working at this very sketchy private equity firm. Um, it was rated by the FBI.
Oh my God.
That's for like
That's crazy.
that's another story. Yeah, but these people were also making a ton of money, and they
Yeah.
were like, yeah, they were like investing in crypto, they were investing in like precious metals. Um, and so I was like, huh, this is interesting. So I started just like watching the markets at first and like watching how Ethereum and Bitcoin were sort of like steadily, um, or not even steadily, they were drastically shifting positions. And I was like,
Right.
I wonder if there's a pattern here. And I was trying to like follow and see if there was a pattern. And I couldn't really quite like catch it. But then I realized I was like, huh, it seems like a lot of this is actually influenced by what's happening in the news because we were reading the news a lot in order to like talk to clients so that we can sort of like it's sales, right? So
Right.
we motivate people to make decisions. Um, and so I started to buy in a little bit, and I saw Ethereum go from like 6K to like what is it? No, not 6K, sorry, like 600, 700 to like
Hmm.
close to like the 4K that it is now. But
Yeah.
I wasn't buying in like huge amounts where like it mattered for me. So then pandemic hit, all goes to shit, right? Nothing in the world is going the way that I hoped it would. I actually quit this firm because I
Yeah.
was like, this is sketchy. I don't know what's going on here. I don't want to be involved.
Being
Uh,
raided by the FBI didn't have anything to do with that.
no, no, no. So actually, I left before that happened. I
Mhm.
like got a message from like a colleague like a few weeks or a few months later, and it
Wow.
was like a video of the FBI coming in. I was like,
Wow.
holy smokes. And I was like, I dodged a bullet. Like, I'm
Yeah.
so glad that I wasn't there. So, where was I? Okay, so yeah,
Quit.
I quit my job right before the pandemic.
Yeah.
Literally like quit February, pandemic, like everything shut down March. And I had basically like shot myself in the foot because I didn't have a job lined up. I
Mhm.
didn't have enough savings for 2 years. But luckily, like, through that journey of, like, I'm scrappy, right? So, like,
Yep.
I could figure it out, and I hustle, so I'm never gonna go hungry, that's for sure.
Right.
And so one thing led to another, started working with, a gallery. I wanted to get back into, like, the art stuff, because I had taken a pause after leaving New York. So I
Mhm.
started working with a gallery in Santa Monica called BG Gallery, and I was doing PR and some art consulting, and then eventually moved into like an art dealer. And so I after working there for a few months, we started onboarding our artists to NFTs, and this was like late 2020,
Okay.
early 2021. And people were already like poking at me, like, Steph, you have to get in on this. Like, you're into art, you're gonna love this. And I
Right.
was like, this is silly. This is probably just another fad. Like, it's not going anywhere. But then I think I was highly influenced too by my partner, Michael.
Mhm.
And so he was like showing me his collection and he's talking about all these like NFTs he was going to buy. And I was like, okay, I'm curious now. So then I went down the rabbit hole, started actually calling those friends who were poking at me initially. And I was like, what do I do to get started? So I like created my OpenSea account. I minted like my first NFT, tried to figure it out on my own. And then
Right.
I like really did my research. I like finally read the Bitcoin white paper.
Yeah.
I like even went through like the Ethereum website. I started to review what the ERC-721 token meant and like what it did. Um, and so down that like rabbit hole, I was like, oh wow, this is actually going to be really great for the creator economy. I personally have always been sort of like anti-system, so I really loved what it did for creators. It
Mhm.
allowed for them to receive royalties. And as someone who's worked in not BG Gallery, but like other weird galleries and sketchy galleries
Yeah.
as well, it's like I know how pay to play they are, and I know how like so many artists like get screwed out of like receiving their royalties, or they get screwed out of like just having like their art and having it as their own, right? Because
Right.
sometimes you're entrusting someone with your art piece in a physical space, and then the gallery has you sign something that says we're not responsible, but you can leave it here and we'll show it, right?
Right.
So something like an NFT, it could live on this ledger, it could be digital, and if it's yours, and it's assigned to
Right.
you in your wallet, right?
Right.
So then it's attached to you forever. So I really saw how it resolved all of that. I also had deals that had gone cold because we had missing paperwork in regards to provenance. And when you're selling secondary market pieces like a Picasso or like a Frida Kahlo, like you can't not have that information.
Right.
Otherwise, then it could be fraudulent.
Right.
But the alternative would be if these lived on chain and they were NFTs, even though they are also physical, because NFTs can be physical,
Mhm.
um, then we could track that provenance and we would know what collectors had collected this piece before.
Right.
And that in itself matters. And even today, it's actually kind of cool because we don't know each other, right? But like I remember talking to a friend a couple weeks ago at NFTLA, and he was like, "Yeah, I listed my Robotos, and it sold to Eva Longoria." And it's like, how cool is that? It's like so far away, yet so close in such a
Close.
way.
Right.
So yeah, NFTs basically took me down this rabbit hole. I bought my first couple, and I just bought them because I liked them. I thought they were beautiful, or I
Yeah.
saw certain people shilling them that like I trusted, and I really needed to be a part of something bigger than myself. I really wanted to be into Bored Ape Yacht Club. I couldn't afford it at the time. I actually
Right.
almost didn't pay rent one time and almost bought NFT, but
Priorities.
I did it, and I regret it every day.
Right. Yeah. Could have
Uh,
been homeless for a couple months, right?
Yeah, I would have been homeless for like a month, maybe, and even then, not really. I would have just paid a late fee. So
Yeah.
well worth it for that $100,000 airdrop, though. Like that would have been so worth it. um, so yeah, I mean, and I don't want to say lucky because I don't think people get lucky. Um, I feel like I was at the right place at the right time, doing the right research and knowing like what my why was, and knowing that like I wasn't here trying to just like flip tokens. Like I actually
Right.
came here with like a curiosity to learn how this could improve the creator economy, and buying things that I believed in, that I really loved, that I didn't care to not have tomorrow. Or if
Right.
they went to zero, like I didn't care. It's art. I would print it and still like have it on my walls.
Right.
So that to me like made sense, right? But I did get fortunate enough to do enough due diligence where eventually some of these NFTs I bought went way up. And as they went way up, I was able to sell a few. And it was really nice. I remember when I sold my first World of Women. I sold it for 1 ETH, and I was like, oh, I could do this. I could do this forever. And I was like, I need to quit my job. I was working for a startup at the time too, healthcare startup, and oh, I totally skipped over my residencies.
Were you studying to be a nurse or a doctor?
No, my like fellowship and my cabin residency. So as I was getting into NFTs, I did this fellowship called Kernel.
Mhm.
And it's sponsored by Gitcoin, and they were sponsoring women who wanted to come into the space. So I was fortunate enough to be selected to be a part of like 250 people from all over the world during Kernel Block 3,
Nice.
where they basically take you through 8 modules of learning and like really like asking you like why you're here, setting intentions, teaching you how to ask better questions, learning about sort of like game theory and what happens in the space, learning about value, really like first principles based, which I really love too, because again, it brings back that whole like awakening the consciousness of like acting with good intent and things of that sort, which
Right.
I really loved. And so seeing that to being around so many intelligent people like doctors, professors, like degens, even developers, right? It was like
Right.
such a cool mix of people. And then I was like, wow, this is really cool. It sparked this idea to start a zine on the blockchain. So we ideated that as a group for a while, set it aside. Then I kind of like stepped away from it as well because I didn't know what I was doing at all as I was getting started. This was like around, let's say, like March, May of 2021.
Mhm.
So it's still very fresh. And then fast forward a few months after the fellowship was over, I saw something on Twitter. I think like my algorithms had changed at that time because I was on crypto Twitter. And so I saw this post from Creator Cabins, and it's actually hosted by Cabin DAO. They had this crowdfund on Mirror where they raised a lot of money, and the goal was to host creators for um, 1 year in the cabins so
Mhm.
that they could come, be worry free, and just create. Right. So I applied with the same idea of creating the zine. Um, and I got into the first cohort. So I lived on a 28-acre ranch with 3 strangers for 1 month.
Cool.
And we all just sort of like focused on creating together. Some of us were not crypto native individuals. Some of us were, I like actually learned a little bit about DeFi while I was there. And I was
Yeah.
like getting started with some like adding like liquidity to pools and staking, things of that sort. And yeah, I was like really curious. Then one thing led to another. After that, I was like, I decided, I was like, I need to leave my job. I don't know what I'm going to do next, but it can't be, it can't be like this.
Yeah.
So, and also one of the metrics for creator cabins, which I think is pretty neat, is like how many people they get to quit their jobs to start working themselves full time. So I was like number 7 on that list. But a few weeks later, I
Awesome.
got hired by Reach. So
Did
didn't last
Reach
very
recruit
long.
you?
Pardon?
Did Reach recruit you?
So actually I received a text from a friend, and they were like looking for someone in this position, and then they were like, "Is this you?" And I was like, "Yes, it's me.
Yeah.
Who do I
Yeah.
need to talk to?" And so I scheduled a meeting like that very next week and had 2 interviews and then got hired the week after. So it was like
Awesome.
pretty fast. I wouldn't say I was recruited, but it was like in perfect alignment with like where I
Yeah,
was and where I needed to be.
that's great. A bit ago, you mentioned luck. Like, what do you think that is? Like, I think about my life right now, and I think I'm like the luckiest person, and what do you think that is? Is it luck? Is it preparation? Is it happenstance?
I feel like a part of it is preparation in a way, right? Because it's like, so like I'm a big believer of like energy and like aligning yourself with like the life that you want to like have, right? So
Hmm.
you can't be abundant in with a mentality of like of scarcity, right?
Right.
You can't have like the wealth you desire if you don't think you're ever going to,
Yeah.
because you are what you believe in. um so I guess like when I say I don't believe in luck fully, it's because I don't think it's luck to like be in a position to like for example, even like being recruited for the job or the role. Like you weren't recruited out of luck, you were recruited out of the years of experience you had prior to getting there.
Right.
Like we had to do a lot of work before getting to that place. And like I'm not like an overnight success either. Like I've had to deal with like years and years of struggle and making mistakes, um being in and out of like an art world that I thought was going to be really fun, and then learning that there were gatekeepers and learning through the motions of that, getting going through like the politics, and
Hmm.
then eventually meshing it with my new understanding of finance and wanting to spread financial literacy and seeing that there was like a fusion. So I feel like I was almost aligning myself to get into NFTs in a way.
Right.
So I guess it's yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah, I don't have a good answer, but I wonder if it's a willingness to endure pain and to run towards pain with a goal in mind. Like a lot of people live in pain and have painful lives. A lot of people have goals, and I want to think that like everyone who has a goal will make it, but it doesn't always happen. I don't know. It's a weird topic, but I'm grateful. I think there's the Abraham Lincoln quote that says, "I will prepare, and someday my chance will come." Right, and it's
Hmm.
taking those chances when they do come, and um, taking them with excellence. Right, being looking at the void and just making the leap.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to that too, right? Is believing in yourself enough to take those risks too, because nothing really comes out of being comfortable, mm, for a long time. So, yeah, being able to be willing to put yourself in situations that you normally wouldn't are a huge asset to
Yeah, yeah. So what would you tell someone? Sorry if I did I cut you off.
leveling up.
Level up. I tell my son he's gaining experience.
Experience points.
Yeah. So what would you tell someone that wants to get in the space now? I feel like there's so many more on ramps than there were like 10 years ago, but what would you tell someone today? It's like, oh, I'm interested. What should I do? I want to get a job in Web3 or I want to be involved in crypto some way.
I always ask why.
Yeah. Yeah.
I try to push them to not before they do. Not because like I don't want everyone to be in it. I think like everyone should, but it's more like I want your why to be strong enough where like me pushing you away is not going to deter you from like actually getting started, right?
Right.
Because it's easy to get frustrated when you don't understand something. It's
Yeah.
easy to like just be turned off by like getting like or buying into something and then getting rugged.
Yeah.
So I think like just being mindful of those things before too is really important. It's like, hey, just so you know, rugs happen, scams happen. Don't share your seed phrase. Like start with
Right.
like those basics and then be like, okay, you really want to get into it? Cool. Go explore Twitter. Get to know Discord. Um, when you like do that, start asking questions too. Like I tell people to like just start asking people in the space because people are usually friendly.
Hmm.
Sometimes I send them to like my resources. I created like a terminology page a while back and
Yeah.
like what are NFTs page. So I'll send them stuff like that or send them articles. I also think everyone coming in should read the Bitcoin white paper. I think
Yeah.
everyone should go through like the Ethereum um, website as well and just start getting to know how the technology actually works. Because as we know, there's other blockchains or social media platforms that are coming into the space that are in many ways hiding the importance of decentralization and self-sovereignty.
Right.
I see the Zuckerbergs of the world. And yeah, I mean Zuckerbergs because there's two now infiltrating. um, and one of them's creating Meta. Another one is literally investing in female-led projects.
Hmm.
Um, and
Yeah. Did you see that Meta's going to take 50% of all creators' profits? So it's another cash grab, right?
that's awful. Like,
Yeah.
that is absurd.
And the thing is, we don't have to put up with that. We have the technology now that we don't have to put up with that. We can do better.
Yeah. Mm, I
And
agree with you. We don't have to. I just hope that like we have as much like marketing dollar behind whatever it is that we're creating or like collectively everyone who actually cares about this has
right.
enough power to like get that sort of message heard rather than having that alternative like, hey, just use Facebook to mint your first NFT.
Yeah, it's almost a battle for hearts and minds of people to really say, hey, wake up to the commercialism that's happening here, in this case, especially, that you're still being a product in a world where you no longer have to be the product.
Yeah.
They're still trying to make you a product, right? And in this case, like Zuckerberg and his team at Meta, like that's we not only like we can do better in the sense of we should be able to do better, like we literally have the technology now that we can do better.
Yeah. I'm wondering, and this is like a conversation I've had with Jay before, because it's like I have hope for humanity. Like I think that ideally we want to be better, we want to have a better future. But he's also brought up that um, people almost kind of like to just be ignorant to everything, right?
Hmm.
So I'm wondering if that will also continue to like shed through, or is that something that's maybe more um, subconsciously programmed into an older generation, or and maybe the new generation is actually aware and is able to push through it. Like, what
Yeah.
is it?
Yeah, it's hard to know if it's a societal thing, if it's like societal brainwashing, or if it is baked into human nature. This is not related. It's just a fun story that I would like to share. Maybe it's anecdotal. I bought my son a graphic novel, and he's almost 10. And a couple nights ago, he says, "Hey, Dad, can we have a talk? Can I talk to you?" And I was like, "Whoa, yeah, we can talk." And he says, "I don't think this book is not age appropriate." And I said, "Okay." He's like, it talks about murder and there might be some kissing in it. So could you check it out for me? And I was like, who is this kid? Like, this is awesome.
So
I would have
cute.
never done this. Yeah, but I think this generation is going to be all right.
That's so interesting. He was
Yeah.
being cautious for you, parenting himself.
Right. His parenting himself. I think they're going to be okay.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
On that
So,
note, do we have any other comments or
I mean, we could keep going, but this has been good.
I think this is good too.
Yeah, yeah. The kids will be all right. Give them the tools, and
The kids will be
let's
all
create.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah. And that's really what it is, right? Which is why I love Reach too, is like we're open sourcing tools so that people have that platform to just get started, right?
yeah. Did you see that Austin at XPac launched all those tools? Like he created this basically arcade. I haven't actually looked at the details of it myself, but basically, like it's a tool to just launch your own open source projects, right?
Awesome.
So even that is out there now, um, and XPac just put it on GitHub. It's open source, so using Reach, it just quickly gives you a way to launch a prototype, and then you get to put in the details of what you want for the theme that you're building.
That's incredible. So he's almost templatized using
Yeah,
Reach.
exactly,
Go
exactly.
Austin.
Yeah, he's great. So we'll have to get that and put a link to that
Yeah,
at the
major shout
post,
out
John.
because he's also very young, ambitious, and
Yeah,
also I don't know if you guys know this, but creating a stable coin is not easy. And this young lad has created a stable coin on Algorand, and it's also a decentralized stable coin, which is
using
even
Reach.
bigger because that's unheard of currently.
Right,
Everything USDC Tether is actually tracked.
right.
Fun fact.
Yeah, it's really, when we say like the space is early, there's not actually a theory of decentralized economics yet, right? Like I was doing some research and I see that there's another research paper that was just put out a couple months ago, but there's not an actual theory of decentralized economics yet. And so it's all groundbreaking territory.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, and I hope we touch on this the next podcast, but how DAO founders are expected to be economists, governance experts, leaders, motivators, so many things. And I feel like that's nearly impossible. So I'd be curious to pick your brain about that next week.
Yeah, let's talk about the road to becoming a DAO founder.
The road, yes, I like this. I'm trying to
Life is a
figure
journey. It's a journey.
Well, thank you all for watching. We want to hear more from you. We want to know what you're into. Do you like what we're talking about? Do you disagree with what we're talking about? I like a little discourse and I don't mind some disagreement. So
Yeah,
leave it in the
absolutely.
comments, like and subscribe, and join us next week. I'm a Stephanie Ochoa. You can find me on Twitter as NFTMAMI, NFTMami. And JP, I'll let you close out.
And I'm still the JP at the real JP Miller on Twitter. So give a holler. Let's say hey.
Amazing. Have a great day.